Homage to fundamental teacher, Buddha Shakyamuni. Homage to wisdom, warrior, Manjushri. Homage to all lineage benevolent masters. The Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered even in 1,000,000 eons. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize Tathagata's true meaning in order to liberate all sentient beings from samsara, generate supreme bodhicitta. Now let's discuss the third type of bodily negative action, sexual misconduct. Here it is explained as follows. Sexual misconduct refers to precepts that lay practitioners must observe. Generally speaking, so-called sexual misconduct refers to a type of precept that must be observed by lay practitioners. In ancient times, when Dharma King Songtsen Gampo of Tibet was alive, he established 10 virtuous laws that clearly stipulated lay practitioners must uphold human ethical morality, that is, to protect oneself through lineage and strictly discipline oneself through righteous Dharma. In the Tibetan region, when King Songtsen Gampo was in power, he established 16 legal regulations requiring all lay practitioners to observe human ethical morality. I believe that Han Chinese regions also have such traditions, especially in ancient times. People particularly valued such ethical morality. One approach is to maintain one's conduct through traditional culture and ethnic customs, and also to uphold certain precepts, like monastics taking monastic vows, and lay practitioners taking the 3 refuges and 5 precepts, thus restraining themselves, that is, following righteous Dharma, to guard against sexual misconduct. One must uphold the law and maintain precepts, generally speaking. Protecting one's mind stream through ordination or spiritual practice is relatively easy. Now, many people restrain themselves through precepts or guard their mind streams with mindfulness and vigilance, which doesn't present many difficulties. But for ordinary worldly people who are particularly unrestrained and dissolute, requiring them not to smoke, drink alcohol, or eat meat, as well as worldly sexual misconduct and false speech among other precepts, having them control themselves through mandatory requirements presents certain difficulties. However, if they understand that in this lifetime attachment to these objects has no real meaning, and also destroys one's future prospects for the next life through educating them from this perspective, and explaining the relevant principles, clearly maintaining precepts won't be difficult either. For example, if you make them understand that eating meat is harmful to their body and health, many people who care about their bodies find abstaining from meat not difficult at all. So generally speaking, ordinary people have desire in their mind. Streams removing this desire through other methods presents certain difficulties. Therefore, the Sutra of the Right Mindfulness of Dharma teaches if one wishes to extinguish the fire of greed, use wisdom as water. For those who do not extinguish greed, liberation cannot be attained. If you want to extinguish the fire of greed, we must seek what Buddhism teaches, the cool water of wisdom that determines selflessness or examines the nature of desire, the cool water of wisdom. With the cool water of wisdom, one can resolve the intense fire of desire. If you truly want liberation, you must first eliminate the fire of greed. If you don't extinguish the fire of greed, then liberation will be very distant for you. So the only method is to practice virtuous Dharma. What kind of karmic results does sexual misconduct bring to a person? Actually, sexual misconduct occurs when we grasp others' bodies as pure, as truly existent, as permanent, resulting from such unreasonable and deluded thinking. If you can truly recall the merit and power of virtuous Dharma, then this desire can also be eliminated. I remember the treatise on the great perfection of wisdom also has similar teachings. Desires are difficult to abandon. How can one distance oneself from them? If one can delight in virtuous Dharma, these desires will naturally cease. This means if you want to abandon desires and cravings, there are certain difficulties. So, what method can be used to distance oneself from them? The only method is that you must delight in virtuous Dharma, delight in the great compassionate Buddha and the great masters, all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and all the virtuous Dharma teachings spoken by all sages that examine the nature of afflictions. If one has virtuous Dharma teachings, or practice the fires of desire, attachment, and other improper mental activities in our mind, streams become easy to handle, meaning they will naturally be understood. Why are there so many monastics in the world when they seek the path of liberation? Not only do they have no suffering in life, but they constantly experience happiness. The reason is that they have all thoroughly recognized the faults of samsara and also understood the excellence of liberation. So first, for worldly people, we should teach the faults of desire and the merits of liberation, and we ourselves should also seek methods, if we don't find convenient methods, to eliminate afflictions, preventing and controlling desires, sexual misconduct, and improper mental activities in our own mind streams present certain difficulties. Many young people, due to age, physiology, and various other factors, including past negative karma, sometimes find it quite difficult to forcibly control and counteract their own afflictions. But once you use Buddhist methods for training the mind, that is, there are Hinayana and Mahayana methods for counteracting afflictions, as well as Vajrayana's special teachings for observing the natural dissolution of affliction's own nature. Through counteracting with such teachings, ultimately, one's mind stream is not only free from contamination by afflictions, but one also recognizes, just as taught in the Platform Sutra, that afflictions are bodhi. When you generate attachment, anger, ignorance, and other afflictive minds, you immediately recognize their awareness. That is the inseparable union of emptiness and luminosity. Thus, many people achieve great enlightenment, thoroughly understanding the original face of all phenomena in the world. So our most crucial practice is to constantly observe our own minds, whether you generate impure thoughts like attachment and anger in your mind stream, or pure conceptual thoughts like faith, great compassion, and renunciation. You should first recognize that conventionally, after generating good or bad thoughts, if some evil thoughts arise, counteract them through the Guru's teachings and the pith instructions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Afterward, one's mind stream can become pure and stainless and naturally recognize the nature and reality of all worldly phenomena, primarily afflictions. So studying Buddhist Dharma, if we say it's difficult, it truly is very difficult. Some people have already studied for 10 or 20 years, but now the afflictions in their mind streams seem to grow fiercer day by day. Such situations also exist. Some people, if we say it's not difficult, actually after encountering the Dharma, their mind streams undergo complete earth-shaking transformations. In a short time, they completely become different people. Some of our people, after ordination, their colleagues and relatives don't believe it. When they were lay people before, their afflictions were so heavy, their anger and attachment so intense and fierce, but now their mind streams seem so gentle and tame. They also naturally develop faith in Buddhism, feeling that in the world, the best method for training the mind can only be found in Buddhism. Many people naturally enter the Buddhist path through others' influences. Such phenomena are quite common. So here it also mentions that in ancient times, regarding the Tibetan region, people particularly observed human ethics. With basic rules for lay people, they also particularly valued these rules. Actually, in Han Chinese regions, in the Sigalovada Sutra, the teachings for lay people on how husbands and wives should treat each other are explained very clearly by the Buddha. In his teachings, I see that in Han Chinese regions, there seem to be several translated versions with slightly different translated content. Actually, for example, how a husband should treat his wife in the process of interaction, treating each other with courtesy and mutual politeness, not being passionate at the beginning, but gradually, when seeing family members, it's like seeing killers from past or present lives or irreconcilable enemies. This shouldn't happen. Everyone should treat each other with courtesy, also not being disrespectful, not casually using demeaning language. Now, many lay people in the world lack mutual respect and reverence, showing no courtesy to others. This shouldn't be so, just as Venerable Padampa Sangye said actually. Living together and depending on each other at the same time is also a karmic connection from past lives, so one shouldn't be disrespectful. The third point seems to be about adorning with jewelry and ornaments and also allowing her certain freedom within the household. Apart from work, I hear some situations are like this. Now, apart from work, she has no other rights. Then this isn't a wife, but a servant living like this. Long term is also impossible. Then mindful affection toward one's wife. The fifth point discusses mutual trust. Then how a wife should serve her husband also has 13 points, and so on. Previously, I remember Master Taishu also taught this, with annotations and explanations. So now people in the world often lack mutual respect and reverence. After this, first families become disharmonious, and when families are disharmonious, various organizations and worldly groups also become discord. If worldly groups constantly fight without rest, then the nations formed by these groups, and even the entire world, will have no sense of security and peace. So first, starting from myself, mutual trust is very important. Otherwise, now people don't observe worldly rules and engage in sexual misconduct. This also has many faults. Previously, Master Yin Guang, in the valuable reference on longevity and health, taught about 12 types of harming human relationships, integrity, reputation, family traditions, as well as life, and many other ways of harming others, harming oneself, harming mental faculties, harming lifespan, and so on. There are also many. Therefore, those who engage in sexual misconduct generally are not protected by worldly Dharma protectors. From what people commonly say, their reputation and customs all suffer a series of harms. So, as lay practitioners, maintaining very pure 3 refuges and 5 precepts is very important. Then, as monastics, one must fundamentally eliminate non-celibate behavior. All impure conduct, as monastics, must be fundamentally cut off. So in the Madhyama, Agama, it also teaches, diligently cultivate celibate conduct, practice excellent behavior with vigor, pure, and without defilement, free from desire and abandoning sexual conduct. There is such a passage. So, as true monastics, they diligently cultivate what the great sages practiced. The great sages referring to the Buddha, the supreme path of gods and humans. Celibate conduct, also called excellent behavior, vigorous excellent behavior, being thus pure and stainless, fundamentally abandoning what is particularly impure and meaningless in the world, desires and sexual misconduct that have infinite faults for this life and future lives. As monastics, fundamentally cut off all impure behavior. The faults of sexual misconduct are particularly severe and also play a catalytic role in destroying other precepts. If there is sexual misconduct, then other precepts, like those who have taken other precepts among the 5 precepts or other precepts of the 3 refuges, are also often harmed. Moreover, the classifications of sexual misconduct are many, including men's self-emission with others' wives or women whom others have already paid for engaging in impure conduct, even with women who have personal freedom during daytime, on fasting days, during illness, pregnancy, when afflicted by worry, during menstruation, and when postpartum mothers haven't recovered, as well as engaging in sexual conduct in places with representations of the 3 jewels. All of the above belong to sexual misconduct. When we taught Pure Land instructions, we also explained this quite extensively. In summary, many lay practitioners now repeatedly say they have taken the 3 refuges and 5 precepts, but actually their many behaviors are probably perhaps due to not understanding the content in Buddhist sutras, including what the treasury of Abhidharma and the precepts require. Actually, after taking precepts, first you should know the methods of maintaining precepts. This is very important. Additionally, this includes conduct with direct relatives, underage girls, as well as engaging in sexual conduct through the mouth and anus. These also belong to sexual misconduct. The precepts also emphasize with animals, corpses and so on, engaging in impure conduct. All of these must also be abandoned. If one abandons sexual misconduct and gives pure offerings, then one will also be reborn in pure Buddha fields. This should be taught in the Mahaparinirvana Sutra, not violating others' wives, not violating one's own wife at improper times. Offering bedding to those who maintain pure precepts, one will be born in the land of the immovable one, not engaging in sexual misconduct, and even with one's own spouse, not violating the above-mentioned precepts of improper times, also giving offerings, offering bedding and other items to those who maintain pure precepts. Then, there is also such a teaching about being reborn in pure Buddha fields. As lay practitioners, one should understand the different types of sexual misconduct classified by environment and time and then abandon them altogether. As lay practitioners, some sexual misconduct is committed depending on environment. For example, where you live, there are Buddha statues, stupas, and scriptures, etc., committed depending on different environments, some of the times mentioned earlier, and there are also other personal behaviors, etc. So as lay practitioners, one should also abandon sexual misconduct. I heard that Mahatma Gandhi of India was remarkable among Eastern and Western people. He was a non-violence advocate. Through vegetarianism, humanitarian cooperation, he had many ideals worth learning from. I heard that starting in 1906, when he was 37 years old, he prohibited desire, living such a pure life throughout his entire life. Also, Emperor Wu of Liang in Han Chinese regions, in some of his writings, it's also said that after age 50, he also didn't eat meat and didn't engage in impure conduct, etc. There is also such history. So, as lay practitioners, even people with status and power, they also live particularly pure lives. They can also maintain the 3 refuges and 5 precepts, living very pure lives. Of course, Gandhi may not have necessarily taken the 3 refuges and 5 precepts of Buddhism, but India also has precepts quite similar to Buddhism. Some precepts are even stricter than Buddhism, like Brahmanism, including present-day Christianity and Islam. We also know of a series of different precepts, so actually people should use some traditional or religious precepts to restrain themselves. Some precepts have great merit and benefit for this life and future lives. Of course, some precepts, as taught in the commentary on the ornament of middle-way non-Buddhists, also have different statements from various people. These statements gradually become precepts. This also exists, including now among common people. Some don't really count as true precepts, but there are certain taboos and certain sayings. This is not allowed, that is not allowed. It seems now, young people increasingly have poorer concepts in this regard. Ancient people or some elderly people regarding walking, standing, sitting, lying down, in many aspects have traditional and customary sayings. Actually, it's better for people to have such concepts. Now, young people seem to have no concept of what's allowed and what's not. Anything goes, it doesn't matter, as long as one can eat and wear, as long as one can satisfy one's senses, it doesn't matter attitude. Actually, this kind of attitude toward oneself, including understanding of some laws regarding worldly and transcendent matters, what should be done and what cannot be done, having such concepts is also very important. The above discusses sexual misconduct, because in Pure Land teachings, the 10 negative actions are explained quite extensively. Let's continue with a brief explanation. The second category of verbal negative actions has 4 aspects: lying, divisive speech, harsh speech, and idle chatter. The first, lying, has 3 aspects: ordinary lying, great lies, and lies about superior human qualities. First, the first one, ordinary lying, refers to all inherently false statements spoken with the intention to deceive others. Whatever language is uttered with the mental intention to deceive others is called lying. Actually, people who speak lies are indeed not good. Some business people or people who were rather cunning in the world, before these people constantly speak language that deceives others, even after ordination, they still continuously lie. Actually, lying serves no purpose for the individual or others, but they're already habituated and can't change. Regarding such lying, the Buddha, in some places especially, I remember in the 8th volume of the Sutra of the Right Mindfulness of Dharma, taught many faults of lying. If a person departs from truth, Good people say he's like a dog. If a person has no truthful speech, he's the lowest among low people. If some people's speech has no credibility, no truthful language, then this person isn't called a person, but called a vicious dog. Some vicious dogs, their barking is also relatively truthful. Generally, when no thieves come out, they don't bark, so such a person is the lowest among low people. But now many great people have become small people because many great people particularly love to lie. Actually, when people lie, indeed after lying once bitten by a snake, 10 years afraid of rope. So once you're deceived by them, you often think originally they deceived me. Might they be deceiving me this time too? You can never forget this matter. So many of us, when we hadn't studied Buddhism before we hadn't ordained or taken lay precepts, might have had various bad habits and tendencies. This is related to your environment and education. At that time, perhaps you didn't study well. When teachers taught you not to lie, you instead learned techniques of lying, so you haven't walked very smoothly on life's path. Now you have already reformed yourself. After reforming yourself, whatever you say, if there's no special hidden meaning or necessity, try not to lie. This is also very important in Buddhist precepts. Moreover, lying is not only a precept established by the Buddha, it's an inherently wrongful deed. No matter who lies, it definitely warrants confession. If not confessed, falling into the 3 lower realms is also very frightening. Ordinary lying is like this. The second is great lies, talking nonsense, saying virtue has no merit, wrongdoing has no fault. Actually, this should be having wrong views in one's mind stream, otherwise one wouldn't say such things. Pure Buddha fields have no bliss. Lower realms have no suffering, the Buddha has no merit, and so on. Just like some people in the world who truly don't understand cause and effect, they often say in front of crowds, the Buddha has no merit, the Pure Land has no magnificence or happiness. This is completely nonsense and also a type of lying, but they themselves don't know, they're too ignorant. If something truly exists and you say it doesn't exist, then what is that if not lying? Look at the East and West. There are so many countries in the world, but if you close your eyes and say, except for me, there are no other people, no other countries, then this is completely language that doesn't conform to reality and is untrue. There could never be a more serious sky-covering lie than this. Therefore, these are called great lies because they fundamentally depart from truthfulness. So the Sutra of the Great Heap of Jewels also says, know that lying is the root of all evils. It destroys pure precepts, and after death one enters the 3 paths. You should know that great lies are actually the root of all sins. If you speak great lies, you have already destroyed pure precepts. After death, you enter the 3 paths of hell, hungry ghosts and animals. It's very frightening, so we shouldn't think speaking a little lie doesn't matter, especially as taught here. Those related to wrong views absolutely cannot say, virtue has no merit, sin has no karmic result. Such particularly frightening lies no one should speak, but the people around us are truly pitiable. Sometimes, looking at their situation and life, on the surface they seem quite glorious. They also consider themselves particularly remarkable, with status and wealth, having everything they need, living happy and fulfilling lives, but everything they do and all the words they speak are completely illusions within illusions. Patrul Rinpoche also said in one of his teachings before, the Buddha originally said, all phenomena are like illusions and dreams. But now people seem like illusions within illusions. Why is this said? Too fake, with no reliability at all, the lives they lead. The Buddha spoke of being like illusions, but we now, within illusions, have even more insubstantial and ethereal things, so in the world there are still many pitiable sentient beings. Next, the 3rd type, lies about superior human qualities, not having attained levels, yet claiming to have attained them. The 5 paths and 10 levels, not having attained 1st level bodhisattva, 2nd level bodhisattva, 3rd level bodhisattva. I have already attained 10th level bodhisattva. I have already attained Buddhahood. Then they start placing a lotus flower beneath themselves. I have already become a Buddha. Take a photo. This is claiming to have attained the state beyond learning. They see lotus flowers in Buddha statues, so Actually, the flowers after becoming Buddha are not necessarily made by the Buddha himself. Then they also need to emit light, and emitting light definitely relies on electric lighting. Now, many people also don't fear karma anyway. They do whatever they want and say whatever they want. They also don't believe in past and future lives, not having psychic powers, yet claiming to have psychic powers, and so on. The Shurangama Sutra says, claiming to have attained what is not attained, claiming to have realized what is not realized, not having attained psychic powers, yet saying one has attained them, not having realized emptiness, and so on, yet claiming to have realized it. Whatever qualities one doesn't have, claiming to have them. The qualities here are not ordinary qualities. For example, worldly qualities like having a university diploma or having singing qualities, abilities, or skills. That's not what this means. Transcendent qualities that ordinary people cannot attain. Qualities that ordinary people cannot attain, yet claiming to have already attained them, all of these belong to lies about superior human qualities. In today's era, comparing swindlers with sages, it's the swindlers who are more successful. Now it's truly like this in our era. A person with pure precepts, exceptional wisdom, and lawful conduct, when such a person goes to the city, no one will respect them, nor will anyone seek Buddhist teachings in their presence. If a person has no qualities or wisdom in their heart, but externally in their behavior, can transform into an appearance of being very accomplished, realized, or having high spiritual attainments, once he starts performing, thousands upon thousands of people follow him. He has his followers, he has his fans. That's what they call them nowadays, right? Is that how you say it? In Buddhism, can we say it like this? Can we say, yes, we can say, right, followers or pursuers? The other day I read a book called Exploring the Traces of the Mind, also written by a Tibetan person, which discusses several points, very directly and incisively, discussing some improper behaviors of a very few tulkus in Tibetan Buddhism today. It also discussed the importance of spiritual practice as well as some unique and great aspects of Tibetan Buddhism. When he spoke of some improper behaviors, I remember there might be several instances. One instance tells of a person from Kham who committed theft and was later fined 20,000 yuan. Having no other choice, he went Han Chinese regions pretending to be a guru. Later he earned over 100,000 yuan, quite a lot of money, and returned. Others asked him how he became wealthy. He said, "Mom, my cleverness and the blessings of the Buddha's robes." So this thief from Tibet, after going to Han regions, also became a remarkable guru. He said this in a joking manner. From behind these words we can see, some people indeed, acting as gurus, deceive others with very untrue behaviors. Those who are deceived are also pitiable. Without wisdom, they mistake thieves for true gurus. Wealth without merit goes into the mouths of those without realization. Tibet also has this saying. So generally, people with merit will have their wealth go to some sages or to truly worthy fields of merit, offering to the Sangha. Then they themselves will have infinite merit, life after life. It becomes like this. This is one story. He also told of another person. He also described another person who also went to Han regions. Actually, speaking of Han regions and Tibetan regions, this isn't very comfortable, but there's no choice. Everyone has their attachments. There was also a person who went to Han regions. Some Buddhists asked questions about Dzogchen, what Dzogchen is like. He said, Dzogchen is actually something delicious to eat. Later, seeing that many disciples' attitudes weren't good, probably someone also told him Dzogchen is an empowerment of esoteric Dharma. He then started saying, "Oh yes, this Dzogchen matter. I think since you like Dzogchen, I'm also prepared to give you empowerment." There are also such stories. There's another one from a love song of the 6th Dalai Lama. There's a verse that many young people in Tibet also quite like to sing. It's also a household phrase. The general meaning is, "White crane, lend me your beautiful wings. I won't go to distant places. I'll return from Litang." That's roughly the meaning. Actually, the hidden meaning of the song's content was that the 6th Dalai Lama was saying, "I will temporarily leave this world when I return. In the next life, I will reincarnate from Litang," hiding this meaning. People particularly like to sing it. there was a person. Many lay practitioners in Han regions requested him to give empowerments. He didn't know how to give empowerments. He recited the love song while performing an empowerment ceremony for others. At that time, these disciples below all felt they had received the most profound esoteric empowerment and were overjoyed. But later, someone accidentally recorded it. Later, the recording reached his homeland. Finally, they discovered he hadn't given a real empowerment. He only used love songs to perform such ceremonies or blessings for others. So regarding these matters, of course we cannot generalize, because when individual people do such things, they also cannot represent all Tibetan Buddhist practitioners. Other people who receive these empowerments and teachings also cannot represent all Han Buddhist lay practitioners and believers. Indeed, there are quite a number of people who now also rely on pure Tibetan Buddhist theories. Thousands upon thousands practice in Han regions and countries worldwide. Countless people have also truly understood the fundamental principles of Dharma, including some lay practitioners and monastics who come to Tibet. They have truly obtained some genuine Dharma in Tibet, but we also cannot exclude that in this process. Indeed, as taught in the words of my perfect teacher, a very few people rashly or without any examination, upon hearing, just like the analogy given by the Guru before, like a hungry dog encountering fine meat. When a hungry dog encounters fine meat, it doesn't think carefully or analyze in detail. It immediately swallows it. Being too hungry to be choosy, it won't carefully observe. Such history existed before, exists now, and will appear in the future. But Buddhist Dharma is completely different from any other worldly academics and arts. If it's worldly arts, for example, today you hear a singer or star has come. You go to the stadium to take a look. If you don't mind spending money, just casually watch. If it's not good, you can give up. This is also okay. Actually, forming Dharma connections in Buddhism is somewhat different from this approach. So first, we should require everyone to observe carefully. Otherwise, some people particularly love to speak lies to deceive others. Such lies are actually self-deception and deceiving others, both meaningless. People's thoughts and behaviors are easily changed as long as a person is particularly good at speaking. A while ago, I heard of a Dharma teacher who began giving lectures. There were also monastics who had actually studied in Tibet for a very long time before. After hearing his lecture, I heard that some of their behaviors and thoughts immediately changed after listening to one class. After hearing this, I felt that perhaps their 10+ years of study in Tibet hadn't integrated into their hearts at the time, because that Dharma teacher said regarding Han Chinese discussions about the issue of monastics' precept substance, he went to India and debated with many great masters. In the process of debate, he first studied the Vinaya. After studying the Han tradition, Vinaya for 7 days, he debated with them and left them speechless. After hearing this statement, some individuals below said, he spoke wonderfully, it's truly like this. He also wasn't saying Tibetan Buddhism is bad, but he mainly wanted to say how pure the Han tradition precepts are, saying that Han tradition Buddhism as a whole has this characteristic. Actually, speaking like this should also be very good. Talking about this characteristic is good, but saying they were left speechless I think might be somewhat difficult. Why? Because from the Vinaya, one fundamentally cannot find what Han region precept substance actually is. So as soon as you bring it up, we have also analyzed this question before, whether some of Master Hong Yi's words actually have any hidden meaning. We analyze this very fairly, not saying how Han tradition is and what Tibetan tradition is. Within Tibetan tradition, there are also many schools with some different views and debates. Han tradition Buddhism also has them. Between Han and Tibetan Buddhism, there may also be many different viewpoints, but we stand on a fair position for analysis. Everyone should have this responsibility. But when some people say they left the other party speechless, the people below say, yes, he's so amazing, praising endlessly. I said, isn't the praise a bit too much? Should we debate in more detail? I think leaving them speechless might be somewhat difficult, because when this topic is brought up, it fundamentally cannot be found in the Vinaya. It's not that the precept substance spoken by Buddha Shakyamuni doesn't exist, but in this lineage transmission, Tibet also had various debates before, Han regions also had various debates. But if we want to find such theories or basis in the classical texts, there are certain difficulties. So now some people say our Han tradition is so great, so wonderful. Look, the Shurangama Sutra, the Diamond Sutra. Actually, this statement might not necessarily hold, because the Diamond Sutra and Shurangama Sutra also exist in the Tibetan tradition. Some very few Dharma friends in our Tibetan Buddhism also say certain sutras are particularly good, Tibetan termas. Tibetan tradition has surpassed all schools. Actually, from the perspective of some teachings' special nature and pith instruction quality, you can say this. For example, for someone with the aptitude of the Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch, then the Platform Sutra is more important to them than any other Dharma, because he relies on this to achieve enlightenment. You can say this, but to generalize about all dharmas or say all others are not excellent, only mine is excellent in some places, this might not necessarily hold either. So now worldly people sometimes have thoughts that are particularly easy to change. Why are they easy to change? I think like this. As long as you engage in long-term study and contemplation and continuously practice what you have studied and contemplated after practice, you will truly develop deep-rooted certainty in your mind stream, immovable, extremely unwavering certainty. You won't have your faith immediately change when others say a few words. Otherwise, you might be like reeds on a wall, swaying with the wind, very likely, when others say something is good. Yes, you're right, very good. When others say this guru is particularly good, he has merit, is it true? Should I immediately go rely on him? Can I see him? I also feel he's very compassionate. When I see him, I always want to cry, just cry. What are you crying about when you see him? Some people promote themselves as gurus or accomplished masters and unscrupulously deceive and harm others. For example, someone says, I have already seen the deity and made offerings to the deity. Many people say this, I have seen such and such deity, or I have already seen demons and destroyed those evil spirits. Most people who speak such words are absolutely telling lies about superior human qualities, including some Dharma friends we often encounter. They often say, I have seen such and such. Most of these are definitely lies. I hope many of us who study Buddhism, if there's no special necessity, it's best not to say such things. When you say such things, everyone will have doubts about your character and other aspects. Because if you can truly see them according to Buddhist precepts and requirements, you also cannot casually speak about it everywhere. So some people often say, I saw King Gezar, I saw Vimalamitra, I saw such and such. Looking at your head, it seems Manjushri Bodhisattva is holding his sword. Let me look again. Guru, don't move. Don't move. I think it should be Buddha, Samantabhadra, or Manjushri Bodhisattva. Oh my, so compassionate. Therefore, we cannot casually trust self-deceiving big swindlers. Look, Patrul Rinpoche speaks very clearly here. One must rely on a practitioner who is very familiar, humble, cautious, and consistent inside and out as a spiritual teacher. This is very important. Someone you've been particularly familiar with for 10 or 20 years, whose precepts are also very pure, who possesses renunciation and bodhicitta, who pays particular attention to their conduct in all aspects. They also won't randomly say, I have seen this, I have heard that. Actually, we should often rely on such spiritual teachers who are proper and in accordance with Dharma. Those who truly need to be relied upon are such people. In their presence, seek the righteous Dharma for liberation in this life and future lives. This point is extremely, extremely important. This statement by Patrul Rinpoche, everyone should still remember well. Keep it in mind, wherever you go, whatever you do. We don't need fame, wealth, or handsome appearance. These don't necessarily have a great relationship with your liberation. Handsome appearance, if one is performing, should have proper features, otherwise it might not be very good on stage. But as a guide to liberation, the most crucial thing is having great compassionate bodhicitta in their mind stream and truly possessing righteous Dharma to guide disciples, understanding righteous Dharma and practicing it properly themselves. Such a particularly familiar person is very important. Otherwise, with our tendency to love the new and abandon the old, some truly good spiritual teachers are abandoned, and we follow those various pretentious, so-called great accomplished masters. Finally, at a certain time, they can't be found anymore. I saw what seemed like an article. I don't remember very clearly. It also wrote about a person. Should I say such things or not? Is it good? It's all speaking ill of others. He wrote about an accidental opportunity at a great empowerment ceremony. He met a particularly compassionate guru. The compassionate guru was also extremely caring toward him. Later, he wrote a simple, brief biography for him. The guru was very pleased after reading it. He didn't mention names. I really don't know who it is. He didn't mention his own name either. He didn't mention the guru's name either, just a certain guru. After he showed him the brief biography, he was very happy. Later he requested him to write a detailed biography, and he agreed. Feeling this opportunity was once in 1,000 years, he felt so happy. Having the karmic connection to do this great thing for the guru, then following the guru to beautiful Tibet, the Tibetan grasslands. In the guru's hometown, he also learned about many of the guru's excellent deeds. He wrote and wrote. I see his writing style is still quite good. He should have written quite well, truly like this. Later once he said on New Year's Eve the guru suddenly became ill and was unconscious for 3 days. All matters including rescue efforts and external contacts were completely handled by him. At this time he probably received different information. Then he became greatly disappointed. His former so-called idol in his heart, the guru he particularly admired, was not like this. After the guru woke up, he had probably completed the first draft of the detailed biography. Perhaps he gave it to the guru or something, it's not very clear. Then he said, "I have already left your monastery. I have disappeared." Originally very much wanting to pursue ordination, but now he won't ordain. He roughly wrote such an article. Behind this there are also some unfamiliar people who rely on others after accidental encounters. They themselves might also regret and destroy many practitioners' spiritual resolve. But in this matter, perhaps he himself also might have had various conceptual thoughts. Not recognizing his guru's true behavior, it's also hard to say. In any case, such articles also appear publicly outside, so generally, Buddhists should better not fall into such nets with each other. Such mutual slander, harming oneself and others, doesn't have much meaning. It's best to first observe and rely on particularly familiar gurus. I think this is particularly important. Some people, although they possess some contaminated psychic powers of the worldly path, these are only temporary. Sometimes accurate, sometimes inaccurate general, worldly psychic powers are sometimes completely unpredictable. Uncontaminated psychic powers can only be possessed by noble beings. Generally speaking, worldly people don't have them. Others fundamentally don't possess them. To attain such uncontaminated psychic powers is also quite difficult. So generally speaking, regarding lying, now worldly people speak many lies in the name of being practitioners. This also creates certain obstacles for one's own practice. Therefore, no matter what kind of precepts you have taken to maintain Buddhism's image and also maintain your own image, it's best not to lie, including our dreams, including our usual feelings and sensations. All should be avoided as much as possible. Speaking of feelings and such, I saw a guru say his Dharma teaching is entirely dependent on the power of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, so he never reads books. Sometimes this might be true. These gurus' realizations are inconceivable. They should be. He said for 10 years of teaching Dharma, he read books, but later, for 20 to 30 years continuously, he never read books, speaking through inspiration. If this is truly the case, we also greatly admire the blessings of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Originally, according to Chagme Rinpoche's view, no matter who it is, even an ordinary guru, when they are teaching Dharma, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas merge into their body. There is also such a teaching, but if one doesn't have such confidence no matter what, we should try to speak very humble language. Then your merit, as long as you have excellent merit in your mind stream, people will still directly or indirectly infer your excellent merit. This is how many great accomplished masters, including His Holiness. Jigme Phuntsok, he never said in front of others, I am not the incarnation of Lerab Lingpa, the treasure revealer. I don't have any psychic powers. I don't have any miraculous powers. I also don't have the ability to recognize tulkus. Throughout his life, he never recognized any tulku. But people's respect for him, his contribution to Buddhism, what was that like? So we, as Mahayana practitioners, especially with the responsibility of Dharma activities on our shoulders in this case, first we should lead by example. Our behavior should be like this. Our speech should be like this. If one is always talking nonsense and speaking carelessly, then the opportunity to propagate Buddhism absolutely doesn't exist. Perhaps at the beginning, a very few people without wisdom might follow you. This might happen, but these people won't last long. Truly wise and compassionate language that benefits others. So now, basic human behavior and principles are also indispensable for every person. Otherwise, when we often encounter some Buddhists in the world, we feel somewhat uncomfortable in our hearts. Some monastics and lay practitioners repeatedly say, I saw ghosts, I saw demons, I saw bodhisattvas. Avalokiteshvara told me I must go to Tibet to seek Dharma. When I arrived in Barkam, Avalokiteshvara again appeared before me. There was originally a lay practitioner who said this. Oh my, I thought at the time, this is even richer than Venerable Longchenpa's realizations. In Venerable Longchenpa's biography, there's nothing like this. But after he finished speaking, he immediately spoke of others' faults. This person is unfair to me, how bad the driver is. When he spoke like this, a person who sees Avalokiteshvara regards others as having such faults. Sometimes nearby inquiring people with particularly poor spiritual attainments think Buddhism probably doesn't teach like this. If one truly sees Avalokiteshvara, truly converses with noble beings, at least the afflictions in one's mind stream wouldn't be so intense. There's this feeling. So regarding ourselves and others, indeed I personally also have poor practice. I often offend quite a few people in the process of speaking. Actually, it's not intentional. It's also, for one thing, is to protect Buddhism's interests. Another is if many practitioners don't pay attention, some behaviors are truly very far from the principles taught in Buddhism when compared. So to help everyone understand, I give some examples. In the process of giving examples, I've unintentionally hit others' vital points. From then on, they're also very dissatisfied with me. This is also a natural thing. So no matter what, regarding what was discussed earlier, for example, sexual misconduct and lying discussed in today's class, actually, if these two major precepts can be maintained, they should have very great benefits and help in the process of being human or practicing. But for worldly people, not to mention higher ones like monastic precepts or higher Vajrayana precepts, let's not discuss those for now. Even the most basic bottom line, many people find very difficult to implement. Therefore, no matter who we are, it's better not to speak big words. Alright, that's all for today's teaching.
Bandharangara Badna Sadarda Bandharangara Badna Sadarda Bandharangara Badna Sadarda